Welcome back. I'm Sunir Shah, President of the Cloud Software Association and CEO of AppBind. Here we have another Agency Connect one-on-one where we're trying to get the digital under control, to get agencies under control. I have my friend Dave Diaz from Redfork Marketing. Him and I are like old souls put together. I think everything he's doing is all the stuff that I am focused on. Now, I'm not saying he's the best agency in the world, but he has a pretty smart cookie when it comes to organizing agencies efficiently or using digital in order to serve relatively difficult customers, small businesses locally. Dave, introduce yourself. Tell us about Redfork and how you came to be so wise.
Sunir, first of all, thank you for the introduction. It's a lot. In many ways, I don't think I see ourselves as a big agency at all. In many ways, we're still growing, we're still learning, but we've had a few conversations at this point. I think one of the big things that will help introduce me the best is, as a child, I was fascinated by technology. While my friends were out playing or doing video games or so on and so forth, I was inside building computers and learning about all the intricate little pieces and how they work together and how software played a role in that. And so, of course, I think regardless of what type of business I started, it was always destined to be technology first, right? And so in many ways, the marketing agency that we own today had to incorporate technology, and the technology had to be at the forefront. That's a lot of who I am. I'm defined by technology. I used to work for a technology company. I own most of their equipment at this point to run my daily life. So it's been a long, interesting journey, but yeah.
It's interesting. I too am a computer scientist who ended up marketing through a series of unfortunate life decisions, as I like to say. And my view is engineering your way into a market, because I just believe the internet is this giant piece of software, right? That is the way we access customers through marketing. If you don't have a technical bent, digital marketing agencies are all digital martech agencies, and this is the conundrum that led to this. What I'm going with this podcast is I just find that so many agencies start on the creative side, but to get the technology under control is actually the secret to scalability and sustainability. Otherwise, you're trading time for money. But you started on the tech side, which is so interesting, and came to marketing. How did you end up in marketing? I hope it was for better life decisions than I made.
When I was working for this technology company, I had the opportunity of working in a retail store and meeting lots and lots of people who very clearly were excellent at what they did. Right? They could speak about their business top to bottom, but then they had their Avery Ripout, business template card with their SBC Global or BellSouth.net email address, and you ask them, oh, let me take. What does your website look like, right? And I think people forget how quickly technology has moved. Right? I'm talking about 10 years ago when many businesses, especially small businesses, didn't have a website or even resources to get one in the first place, right? So, a lot of these people, if they even had a website to begin with, it certainly wasn't marketing oriented. It was put together by Uncle Bob, and it did not represent their businesses. So I felt like what was happening was you would see these large corporations with large budgets be able to dominate this internet space that was supposed to make business accessible for everyone, right? And in reality, it was too challenging for many of the small businesses. And so with that, as a hobby, I started making websites, and eventually it unfolded. And several years later, I have an agency now, and we're doing everything from setting up a PLS system for a restaurant to making sure that we understand the full customer journey of somebody who orders something online, to understanding the flavors of ice cream that somebody tends to order more often than the other, right? And all of those things are easily tracked and understood through technology. There are some ways to abuse that, and I think doing as much as you can to be honest and forthright and make sure that you are honoring people in their own decisions and their privacy. I think all of that is tremendously important, but you can serve those markets and do it in a way in which people enjoy it and have fun. And I think if you're doing it like that and you teach small business owners how to make those types of decisions and how to incorporate that type of technology, they end up being just as successful as the next person. So that's what we found within our company. We put that process together, and here we are.
The way you describe it, I mean, this is true. Like, clients need all this help, but it's confusing, the internet, because this is not their core competency. They could be lots of customers who are like really technical, like say an HVAC company. It could be really technical HVAC, but internet marketing is just a whole other domain. One thing we talked about in the pre-interview is like I was having a bad morning, is that so much of life being an agency owner is being a therapist. And I think clients are always anxious all the time. So I love asking this question from your point of view, or from what are the clients from the client's point of view. I don't know if you've had any stories. How would they describe what you are actually doing for them? Like, what is the anxiety that you are taking care of from them, in their own words? Have you heard anything? I love these stories, because it's so
Yeah.
different than SEM, SEO, PPC. Like, clients don't talk like that, right?
Well, I think for a lot of companies, the answer to this is probably different, right? And I think in many ways, the culture of the company builds the answer for this. And for us specifically, a lot of what we do is we go to them and we say, hey, listen, there's two sides of this relationship, right? One side is you just don't know what you don't know. And I think that's where a lot of the anxiety comes from. It's like, hey, we have this problem, or this is very stressful, or this is very frustrating, or I feel like I need 12 more hours in the day to be able to accomplish all these things, or I don't know how to reach the right people. I continue to get traffic, but nothing's converting, or whatever it is, right? And in that sense, what we do is we introduce ultimately a marketing team to them. And we say, hey, listen, for the cost of hiring maybe one person with one or two skill sets, you get an entire marketing team of people who are knowledgeable in many different areas, who can help in many different areas. And ultimately what happens here is we get to take a lot of stuff off your plate, and more specifically the stuff that you're not good at, right? And one of the things that's really cool about our company, I think, is that because we have developed systems and processes that do not necessarily take a ton of man hours, we're able to remove something that maybe they were doing very manually at the store, where we can take it over and put it into a system, and it's done and it's taken care of. The other side of this is we stress the partnership aspect. We stress that we're not successful without them being fully invested in us. And so we're not asking for them to do the marketing work. We're asking for them to explain to us how things are going at a physical store, or what sales look like, or what items are selling more than others, right? And by getting that type of information, we get to work together as a team and ultimately do what I think any business owner does when they hire somebody, right? They get to take something off their plate that they may not actually be very good at and give it to somebody else who can do it better.
Well, that's 100% it. I learned this by having clients yell at me until I figured it out. They just want you to take it off their plate, like they're burdened and they want you to take care of it. And it's so interesting to me how much people don't know that. And on the shingle on their website, you see so many agencies. They list like all the skills they have. I've interviewed a lot already, and I just got what they want to talk about. We do SEO, PPC, UI, app design, whatever. Just throwing out all their capabilities, right? But what do you market yourself at? You're talking about results. Like, you're talking about them, their story, captivating customers, building businesses, success,
Right.
selling stuff. I mean, if it comes down to sales, but these are the words from a business owner's point of view. And they don't know what you're doing, but they just want you to help them out as a team member.
Well, and the other thing too is that technology at the forefront, right, was supposed to make everything simpler. And I think you and I both know that in many ways, what it's done is it's provided much more opportunity, but at the same time has made things much more complicated, right? For instance, I remember when Uber Eats was born, right? And there was no other services like it. And now we've got Grubhub and DoorDash and everything in between, and Postmates and whatever, right? There was a point where this idea of having a tablet at a restaurant to receive orders to then manually put into the POS was the best thing to do to make sure that you didn't run into issues. But fast forward just a few years in the future, and now a tablet is multiple tablets. I mean, we used to call it Tablet City, and it was hilarious because with one of the restaurants that we managed, you'd have the person that was there and then a series of tablets behind them, and they'd have to go in, look at all the different tablets, be aware, ding, 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 right? And we were able to go in with a service called TOOS. That's a type of protocol that we use. There's a lot of services that offer that. But we were able to bring in a TOOS service that brought about an automation that connected all those tablets and services directly to the cash register. And it was able to auto accept orders, and it was able to put in the orders and send them to the kitchen and do absolutely everything and replace the headaches that these restaurants were going through. And I think that is one of the biggest key components here within marketing today, is that marketing is not just getting the word out anymore. Marketing in many ways is about the entire experience from start to finish, right? Because if somebody hears about a restaurant on DoorDash per se, and they place an order, and because the restaurant doesn't have integrated technology, they miss it, right? Because there's so many dings and all these things going on, that customer's going to have a terrible experience and decide not to order there again. And so understanding these technologies and working with companies that understand them well enough to integrate them and make and actually take advantage of the simplicity that technology can bring, I think is a really key component in marketing today.
It's so interesting. We mentioned the tablet city thing. Always, when I ever observed restaurants doing that, it felt like one of those like experiments they do with crows and mice, where they have all these buttons and you have to hit like. It just feels like that. And it's so dehumanizing, right? And it's like this is what technology product companies do because they can't deal with. They're not in the stores, with the people. They
Right.
can't see, and they have to focus on just putting their tablet in there, right? Like, this is the beauty of the purpose of the agency channel in the software industry is that you are there with the person. You are a human being. You are seeing the client. You are experiencing. And then you're like, well, we need to solve this problem. And you're agnostic to the platforms. You don't care. So you're going to use a TOS to like virtualize.
And that's it, because Uber, for example, has been trying to send out exclusivity agreements to restaurants to solve the problem of tablet city, of course, by becoming exclusive with them. Right? They're going to come up with solutions that are in their best interest. But I think as an agency owner, one of the things that we're constantly trying to do is understand how to, instead of removing these obstacles by removing services and removing opportunity, right? We try to come up with solutions based on technology that allows us to create an even better solution with as much opportunity as possible.
That is, I think, a really good story about why you are so good at what you do. And I think the next interesting question is, like you said, you have processes to bring it under control, and like that's the next part of being a digital agency is bringing the digital under control for yourself. And you have a pretty advanced model around packaging your services up that I think is worth telling. What are you actually delivering from a skills basis so other agencies can understand
Yeah.
where you fit in the dimensions.
Well, we have two different sides of our agency, but I think the most important thing to understand before I dive into the details is that our agency operates in a space that most agencies either A, don't want to operate in, or B, can't figure out how to operate in. There's this natural gap, and this is, by the way, part of our mission, and the reason why we wake up in the morning is the excitement of doing this type of work. But there's this gap, right? When a small business owner starts, the world is exciting. Everything is exciting to them, and they just want to try everything. And there's no niche, there's no focus, there's nothing. And a lot of that is because they have the time, right? Or they have the passion and the time, right? So maybe they have a full-time job, but outside of those 40 hours a week, they're investing every single ounce of time that they have into building this business. And upon finding any amount of success, what quickly begins to happen is they end up stuck in a lot of administrative work, and that time is reduced to less than zero. They have no time left, but they also have no budget available, and that right there is a crucial moment. That's when most businesses fail. Most businesses fail not because their product is not good, but because they can't figure out how to do the marketing and all the administrative work without having a budget in place, right? At that point is where we come in, right? Most agencies don't want to work with people within that range because they don't have a lot of money to spend. With that said, we have two sides of our agency. We have the Redfork marketing side, which is the full agency, full services available, and then we've got Redfork Express. Redfork Express is designed to work with the 0 to 200,000 a year company. $200,000 to a new business owner with no entrepreneurial experience thinks like that is a tremendous amount of money, and both you and I know how quickly that vanishes. Initially, they want to start with services for a few $100s a month or a simple website that's going to cost them $1,000 to $2,000, and agencies simply don't offer that. And so there's this huge gap. There's like a chasm without a bridge, right? Like, I see where I want to go. I see where I need to be. I've now talked to lots of different people. I've been to networking events and I see all these other people excelling. And so I see it. It's there. I just don't know how to get there. And nobody's willing to help me because I don't have the money. And so a lot of our marketing approaches within that area are centered around creating systems and processes that are replicatable, right? We may not be the company within the Redfork Express umbrella that's going to do all of these different customizations and try to figure out the exact specific thing that's going to be totally unique to your business and creating unique content and so on and so forth, right? We're figuring out ways in which we can build systems and processes for an industry or a vertical or a type of company and then execute it multiple times that gives them the ability to kind of like press a button and get the marketing they need to get to the other side. Once they do get to that other side, it's still, funny enough, not the time to typically talk to a regular agency yet. Most agencies carry minimums of $3,000 to $4,000 to $5,000 at least before they're even willing to shake your hand. Whereas, we start within the $1,500 range per month for the regular marketing experience. And so a lot of businesses are able to go within that area. And one of the ways that we're able to do that is we typically don't sell our time. As an agency, if you are selling time, you're selling a finite resource, that becomes completely unscalable. It's impossible to manage, right?
Time is hell. That's exactly right. If you're on the time is money treadmill, it's so hard to scale. So many agencies are trapped there. So what are you doing to get beyond selling time?
We realize at the end of the day, especially small business owners, because they haven't been in this world, they don't have an understanding of the business world and how it works on the administrative and professional side, right? So when I tell somebody, hey, I'm going to give you 10 hours worth of time, that means nothing to them, because you know what they want? They want they want extra green in the bank account. They don't really care how it gets there. They want to fulfill their mission and their vision, and they want to, and they have this culture behind their business. But at the end of the day, what runs the business is green in the bank account, and that's the ultimate deliverable, right? And so we came to the determination that, well, what does it matter if it takes us 6 hours to complete a project versus 40 hours to complete a project? If 6 hours completing a project gives them what they're looking for, and many times even more than spending 40 hours on a project, why would you pay more for this project that takes a lot more time, that doesn't deliver as well as the thing that we did in 6 hours? What we did instead was we developed something called blocks. And blocks are areas of marketing in which you can unlock for a set price every month. So let's talk about email marketing, for instance, right? I think most people underestimate email marketing. I think most people think that email marketing is a complete waste of time. Probably one of the only outgoing messages that you have such full control over. If you want to message somebody at 9 a.m., whether they open it or not, they're going to get it in their inbox, right? It's not the same way with, say, posting something on Instagram. You're not guaranteed that even a quarter of the people following you will even see that content. So speaking about email marketing, at a set price per month, you're able to unlock that area. And some months are busier than others. For instance, let's say you were in retail, right? The holiday season is going to be insanity. The email marketing approaches and the strategies and the content that we put out is going to be absolutely crazy. But sometime in the middle of summer, when everyone's traveling and nobody's focusing on your specific brand for whatever reason, the email marketing work may be more limited. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how much time we're investing. All they want is the email marketing stuff to go out and be appropriate for the time of year. And so, regardless of what time of year it is, you pay the same dollar amount and you keep going, and you're just working within an area of marketing as opposed to selling time. That makes it really easy for us to plan and build a model in which we can charge a fair price for the value that we're selling as opposed to the time that we're selling.
Those who've managed to productize services, you have a ladder, right, where you're selling. I think you alluded to this. You sell the teaser project, which I think is the website, and then you ladder up one at a time. So what are the other components that, as our client is progressing, that they might buy from you?
Typically there's two different sides, right? There's two different umbrellas. Some people say inbound and outbound. Other people say paid versus organic. Let's just use paid versus organic. I think most people that are not familiar with marketing terminology understand that, right? Like, you're either paying to be somewhere, like you're paying for Google ads or paying for Facebook ads, or you're doing something that's more organic, where you might be paying with your time, you might be paying a salary for somebody to do something, but otherwise you're not paying a company to promote your business, right? And so for us, what we've done is we've developed two things. We've developed an internal list of services that we offer. Simple things like email, social media, SEO, ads on Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, whatever. And then we even have something called the design block, where we will create designs for a company. And basically the way that works is they give us a list of all the things they want to design. We put that list together and we work in a queue format, right? That protects our team, that protects our time. We can work on one project. When that project is done, we move to the next one, and so on and so forth. And they just pay the flat rate per month for our design block. But essentially what happens here is, if we have a service for them, we sell them on that specific service, we provide them the marketing, and then we track it and measure it so that they see what it's doing. But the other thing that we've done, interestingly enough, is we've built systems that we can put somebody into for a specific result, like the TOS system that we talked about, right? We've built systems around review management and reputation management online. Collecting Google reviews is important, but so is Trustpilot and all the other platforms that are out there that collect reviews. How are you managing that, right? So we have a system that aggregates all of that together in one place, and then we have a team of people that we've hired to answer reviews that come in, right? And so building these systems has become incredibly important in us being able to replicate something very easily and provide a ton of value to a customer without having to rip their bank account dry at the same time. The other thing that we've done is we've built a network of people that we trust that operate at the quality of work in which we desire. That allows us to be able to say, hey, we don't do that work, but we've got a strategic partner that does. And we'll help manage the relationship and we'll work together to understand what they're going to be doing. But this company is going to help out with this area.
Do you usually have the second agency work directly with the client, or will you have them as a subcontractor?
It depends. It really depends on what the partner usually wants. For the most part, for the sake of experience, we tend to manage the entire account from an account management perspective. But at the end of
Hmm.
the day, sometimes being that middle person just gets in the way of things, right? I hate white labeling services. I absolutely hate it. And for those of you who don't know what white labeling is, it's when you hire another company and they provide services, but they don't identify who they are. So you have to manage the entire account, right? I really dislike it because at the end of the day, if they mess up, it's my fault. If they have something to communicate, they have to communicate it to me, and then I have to communicate it to it's a mess. And so we say, hey, this is our strategic partner, X, Y, and Z. They're going to help with this. We're still here for anything that you need in relation to this, but they're going to be in communication with you about X, Y, and Z moving forward.
Yeah, it's a very interesting trade-off, like how much control you need or want and when, and then how reliable. It's hard to find reliable partners because they have to be as good as you, right, to your clients. Sometimes it's better. It depends on how much control you have, what your promises to your clients, and sometimes it isn't. I'm always interested in what
Yeah.
agencies say. Do you actually have a mix then? Like some are under you and some are direct?
Some of them are under us, but mostly because they're freelancers as opposed to full businesses, and ultimately it just means that they don't have a full level of support for customer service and account management engagement and so on and so forth. Right? They're not willing to manage a specific system. They don't have the amount of time because you're hiring them to do a job or a series of jobs. So those people work underneath us as an employee would, but as a contractor instead. Right? But typically speaking, when we work with another agency, we go through a vetting process to make sure that they are delivering as much as they can. And most importantly, I think the thing to focus on when you're building something like this, if this is a strategy of yours, is to make sure that they're not doing your quality of work, but surpassing it, right? We do plenty of SEO work. But we have found recently an agency that we really like that we were able to figure out something together with, financially speaking, where they're significantly better at SEO than us. And so why wouldn't we want to bring them into that, right? And so we test their customer service process, we ask them what they do, we look at their systems, and if they can provide a better service, fantastic. And then we work out a deal where we continue to bill the customer within one bill, so they see one bill and they're really excited about that because they only have to pay one thing, and yet they get to work with an agency that's even better than what we do, and we're forefront about that. Hey, we work with the strategic partner because they're better at this than we are, and we'll continue to work together and be in on this, but we're bringing experts to the table to make sure that you get what you need.
Here's a actually interesting question that I don't think people talk about enough. So you mentioned you vet the agency. You alluded to what you do. Like, what is your process to vet an agency? Because I think this is one of the most hardest part of the like agency partnership is like how do you get past like the coffee date stage to getting into an engagement?
I think there's a lot of ways to do this, and for us specifically, we have a specific process. But Sunir, I have to admit, I've never been a data person. I we have to use data. We have to understand data. I think that in the marketing world, so many people critically use data to make decisions, right? Somebody's sitting behind a spreadsheet, and we know, and I certainly know with my experience having worked retail in the past that sometimes somebody sitting behind a spreadsheet doesn't know as the person in the actual store, right? A survey is less useful than speaking to somebody over the phone and getting their thoughts like this because you get tonality and you get all kinds of things, right? Specifically with vetting agencies, most often than not, we go through a process in which at the end we ask ourselves the question, would we hire them? Would we have them do our work? Would we trust them with this specific service as an agency to serve us? And no matter what the data says, and I'll get into that in a second, no matter what the data says, if the answer is no, and many times it's not even just because they don't do a good job, it's because you just don't have that connection with that individual, right? You don't have commonalities to share. You don't have these things that help you feel good about the organization. That one red flag is enough to say that we're just not a good fit for them. Some of the things in which we do is we'll put them on a small project initially, or we'll have them develop something for us, or we'll even pay them and we'll say, hey, this is not something that we're going to use, but we have a project for you to work on, just to show us an example of what you can do. We'll pay you for the work, but we're not going to use it anywhere. It's just an evaluation. And those things, spending a little bit of extra time and a little bit of extra money to make sure that you've got the right partnership and the right connection, is a tremendous amount of saving in headaches and finances in the long run.
I think it's like dating. I mean, we're just humans. Everything's dating, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, you tested their customer support. You have to be their client first before you can put them in front of another client. Because how could you see, and not to abuse Jerry Maguire, but if you have, if you are, a single parent and you want someone to, bring you into that relationship, your kids are your child, right? And sorry, your
Right.
clients are your clients are your child, and you don't want to bring another person into that relationship unless you can trust them.
And I think it's easy to say, hey, this person did a good job on this. And yeah, we don't necessarily get along, or I'll send them an email and expect a response tomorrow, and I don't hear until next week. But the project that they did was fantastic, and they definitely excelled well beyond us. I mean, that is a series of headaches coming down the road. That is 1,000% a business you're not going to get along with, and that will ultimately cause you more trouble than good. I think culture is probably a really big thing here. I know you're specifically in the software part of things. For me, funny enough, culture is huge, to the point where if I have a bad experience with the sales rep or customer service, I actually don't care how great that software is. I probably won't use it simply because of that.
I've learned as agency owners evaluate software companies the same way they evaluate themselves. They're just measuring the software company as if they are like the way you measure yourself, and they want software companies to treat you as an agency like you treat your clients, because that is basically your representation to the client. But it's a good transition. So the last thing we should talk about. You have some pretty interesting software partnerships. I mean, you obviously a lot of Wix, Mailchimp,
Mhm.
Zapier. Who has been a really great software partner for you that we could look to for inspiration? Other software companies.
Sunir, I believe in standing out as much as you can. I think it's a great marketing approach, and so I'm going to do that with this question. I'm going to provide an answer which I think is not just frowned upon, but it's a cuss word within the marketing space, and that is Wix. People fervently hate Wix. No, no, no. They absolutely hate it, and I understand, because we are creatures of habit. We don't like change, and so we've heard that first impressions last a lifetime. And arguably speaking, Wix was a horrible web platform for a very long time, especially because a lot of people don't remember this. They were Flash based in the beginning. And that wasn't such a bad thing until Steve Jobs decided it was. When Apple decided that Flash was an abomination and Wix didn't change over, they became irrelevant, right? And everyone agreed that Wix wasn't what you should use. And then even when they switched over to their new editor that was HTML based instead of Flash, they were not good with SEO. Their performance was abysmal. It didn't load fast. It didn't provide a great experience. Mobile didn't work well, which we know
Mm.
90% of internet time is spent on mobile, right? So there were all these reasons why Wix was, an awful platform for people. And in many ways, I feel like what Wix has done is put their heads down and seen all of the problems that people are complaining about and tried to do everything they can to fix them. As a matter of fact, one of the things that they did back in 2019 was they started to focus and learn, and they spent an entire year learning about agency life. And that's all they did. They didn't develop a single tool for agencies during that year. And one of the things that they did was they spoke to agencies in person, to the point where we were one of the ones chosen. Fortunately, we had the opportunity to fly out to Israel, to their headquarters,
Oh
and
wow.
sit down with project managers and sit down with the individual people and the team who is building these products, and tell them about what agency life was about. And there were many times where they came about and said, hey, here's a prototype. We developed this thing. We think agencies are going to love it. And we would sit down and I go, this is terrible, guys. Here's why. Here's something that you're missing. This one little thing that you're missing that makes this completely irrelevant. And so I think that attention to detail and the opportunity that they had for us to be involved in something so much bigger than just ourselves made it to where now Wix is a tool that absolutely agencies can use, and one that they continue to ask questions about and to include people and to develop a partner community where they're listening to the agencies. And I think that's really the key thing here, right? Is we're using Wix because it is, in my opinion, now a superior product. As a matter of fact, WordPress has even come out and admitted that Wix has better core web vitals, has better performance, and has better CDN support than even WordPress does, which is unbelievable to hear that from them.
My experience
Right.
with Wix is very similar. Obviously, they had a rough period of time, but then they started working very assiduously on it, and they did a few things that impressed me. I even had an experience when I was at Olark Live Chat. They had an app store they launched. We were trying to list in it, and then the protocol at the because it was in beta. I showed them. I wrote like a 2-page email with incredible technical detail because I'm a computer scientist and have been marketing. Like, who's this marketer? I showed them like a bunch of security problems with their OAuth flow because I could like hijack the session and transfer it and all this stuff. They fixed it, but like they were not. They didn't. They were clearly, what is going on here? They like over their skis, as we'd say in Canada, right?
Sure.
But then what did they do? What did they do? They just like buckled down and like, well, how do we improve? How do we improve? I met one of their product managers. They launched, what's it called, Wix Console or something. It was such an amazing piece of technology. I met them at Collision. They showed me all the things they were doing in the back end to never have problems like that ever again. The quality control just went way through the roof on the product side, on the engineering side. They took all those lessons and then said, "Yep, we're going to fix them all," which is, from a management point of view, very impressive leadership. And the other thing they did that I thought was really impressive is in the United States, they have these Wix offices all over the place, and they are all co-working spaces, right? Because they want to meet customers, small businesses, and agencies. And they do that, it's not because they want to make money on the offices or split them. It's literally they were really user centric. When their attitude, I talked to them, it's like, you cannot see your customers through the glass of the screen. So we just wanted to create office spaces where we can everybody, marketing, sales, engineering, product design, customer support, could sit there and see Wix customers or non-Wix
Yeah.
customers, because like who didn't like Wix, and talk to them constantly. And like they were very aggressive about it. And that is not a normal thing. We all talk about it in Silicon Valley and SaaS doing that, but they were very, very systematic about it.
Yeah.
So, there may be they were a dirty word, I guess, but they knew that they worked really, really hard on it. Like, and it shows, like, they care. They definitely care.
Saying that you're customer centric and actually doing it are two completely different things. I think we know that, right? And let's go back to something that I think anybody can understand, whether you run a business or not, right? If you think about a traditional relationship, whether it's between you and a significant other, or you and a friend, or you and a business partner, whatever it is, right? We know that one of the most important elements of that is listening and then responding appropriately. If you can't learn to do that, I think that is the demise of your business on any front, but especially on the software side, right? Because on the software side, it's so easy to switch away. It's so easy to find a tool that guarantees an import feature to pull all your stuff over and make the transition simple, right? If you're working with even something like a lawn care company here, you got to do the research and make calls and do all this stuff to go find another lawn care service provider. And sure, that doesn't sound that complicated, but it's almost easier to switch away from software than it is from the person cutting your grass. And so in this case, when you are customer centric and when you can actually do that, people feel valued. And at the end of the day, like we know that people just want to feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves. And to this day, I've had people come up to me and ask me if I would, switch away from Wix to something else because it was better for whatever reason. And I can't do it. I can't. I feel like I owe them something, which is crazy to think that I owe a software company something. Right?
You all on one vacation somewhere. They flew to Israel. It's fun.
Right. Right. Well, and one of the things that we learned out there that they do is, mind you, we had a totally different experience than I think most agencies will ever have with Wix. But you know that Wix doesn't send out surveys? Isn't that just the craziest? Like, they don't send out surveys. And it's not a lack of initiative to get that feedback. It's because in their mind, surveys are completely inefficient. Surveys give you a text-based response. And we know just by texting that sometimes that tonality makes a huge difference in you
Yeah, they're very much
understanding what
over
the
the
other person
shoulder
needs.
user researchers. Like, and this is why they
Yeah,
have the office, right? They want to see you because this
right,
is the whole thing. The
right.
glass of the computer is a lie,
So
right?
did
And
you
you
know?
have to see people.
Do you know Wix has a team of people, and you got to understand the financial investment in doing this because you know we're all about automating things as much as we it possibly can at this point because it just makes things faster, easier, less expensive, more efficient. Surveys are one of the clear ways to send out for feedback in the most efficient manner. They have a team of people who call their users and ask them if they're willing to provide a few minutes of their time to provide feedback on Wix. And they ask them for permission to then go into their system. They don't do it without their permission, of course, and see what services, apps, and so on that they're using. And they'll ask them very specific questions about their website and services that they're using. And this is not just for agencies, this is for every user. And that's how they collect their feedback. And when I asked them about this, why would you spend the time doing this? They said, well, because when somebody says, I don't like this on a survey, you don't really get the sense of why they don't like it, right? You just see, I don't like this. When you ask somebody, hey, what do you think about this? And they go, I do not like this at all, right? That is a fervent no. That is an excitable frustration that they're experiencing. And you get to understand how big of a problem it is, as opposed to just, I don't like this.
Well, I mean, we were just talking beforehand. My morning began with my microwave being failed to deliver by Home Depot for the second time. And then all I got was a survey, 1 to 5. How would you rate this? I'm like, well, 1, I guess, because they broke the first microwave and they couldn't manage the delivery this morning because they're just beyond them. And so, you don't get the understanding of what is a reasonable expectation as a customer, how this could have been better. They're inconveniencing me. They got to fit into the day. This is part of their promise, is that they would do like totally online orders and fulfillment, installation. If that's a position they want in the market, this is how they'd have to adapt to our lives, because we can't hold our lives on hostage. We've all had 2 years of the pandemic, all this stuff, right? You can't get that from a survey with 1 to 5. You have to talk to people. Wix is great. I'm. It's not a dirty word. They're great. I say that. Lots of website
you're not an agency owner, and I will say this: if you're the type of person who can adopt a piece of technology, I'm going to walk back on my own words here, but if you can adopt a piece of technology, you also have to be willing to give it up. And I think that if you can do that, if you can understand that as the world moves forward, that technology that you're using right now, if it doesn't evolve properly, that you have to look for the next best thing, then I think you are the type of individual who will find success, not just today, but moving forward, right? Like if Wix one day does become irrelevant, as hard as it will be, it's my responsibility as an agency owner to say, well, we can't use Wix anymore because the product simply doesn't deliver, right? I would hope that with user feedback and all the initiatives and how aggressive they're being about advancing their platform, that doesn't happen. But I think that that's where a lot of WordPress agency owners are nowadays. I mean, these people need to realize that even if they understand the system perfectly, the second that they hand it over, they risk that customer updating a single plugin and breaking everything, right? Or they risk that owner thinking that they can update a section of the site and they get the WordPress white screen of death, right? I mean, these are serious problems that, especially for me on the small business side, are inevitable. It's not something that could happen. It's something that has happened and will continue to happen if we continue to use software that's outdated like that,
Amazing. All right. You've been amazing. So much, I said, wisdom. Yeah, it's true. I mean, you figure out a lot of things, and there's a reason why Wix flew to Israel, I'm sure. It wasn't because you're just any random individual. You have a lot to say that is valuable. How do people get a hold of you? How do they find you? Website, LinkedIn, email? What do you want to do?
I'll be very honest in here. I have not put a lot of time into social media, and I'm going to say something that again is a little bit blasphemous here in the marketing world. But I personally hate social media. I think there's a place for it. I think if it's something that people value, that they should continue to use. I am working on developing a process and a team that can help me, put out.
They should meet you at the local bar, is what you're saying.
On social. Yeah. You should meet me at the local bar. Absolutely. No, but you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me under Diaz Dave. You can find me via email, dave@redforkmarketing.com, and email me personally. But yeah, that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. If you have additional questions or want to just chat, I'm always down to hear what other people are doing. I love to learn about what other people are doing in the space.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing this.
And thank you for having me, Sunir. I really appreciate it.
For more great insights on partnerships and software, like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.